You call me a saint, but you know I'm a stranger, all willing and able to do what you want. You think I'm a thinker, but I'm just a singer, all busy and pretty, just making believe. Boy, I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling down to obscurity. Don't let me ever be this alone. I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling, I'm falling. Shouldn't be trusting me, I could be making it all up.
Divine Source, Great Spirit, Ancient Ones, Ancestors, beloved helpers, we ask that you come be with us this day, anchoring this space sacred with us, helping us to speak and receive the words and the healing that's on offer that is truly helpful. We ask that you guide this talk and guide those who would benefit from it to be with us this day. Thank you. And so it is.
Welcome to episode 10 of Talking Spirit. My name is Jutta and I'm here with Elizabeth.
Welcome everyone, sending much love.
Wow, episode 10!
Wow.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, yeah.
We would make it
Yeah.
to episode 10. So, the topic that has been floating around is, simply put, projection. And I think we've still kind of been in the energy of some of the movies and shows we've been watching. You know, Shutter Island, huge projection movie. The Guilty as well, big projection movie. The King you mentioned as well, yeah. And it's a good topic to get into because as we find ourselves in this world, we almost can't help but be in projection mode at almost any given moment, especially when we're still here, not really aware of why we're here and what this world even is. You know, there are many spiritual teachings that really tell us that this world isn't what we think it is, and it's actually just a projection of something in our own minds, basically of a trauma in our own minds. And as we start to become aware of that, we will see more and more and come up against more and more of like small versions and specific versions of the one big projection. And it seems like, especially in relationships, it gets really obvious or really in our face, whether we want it to happen or not. Yeah, so again, we're just in a prayer of seeing what the Spirit, the Divine, wants to share around this topic. And you get to come along on a journey with us here.
As we fumble through the dark, because we really, we kick stuff around and it sort of percolates in the background, and then we sit down and we kind of go, what are we talking about? and it always feels like a grasping at straws somehow to get going here, which is why the prayer again is so vital, because we have to be spoken through, as Jutta said to me as we were about to hit record. It's such a vast topic. You know, these are big conversations, and a friend of mine started to give some feedback about these talks, and it seemed like he wanted to say, make them shorter. And it's like, how can you talk about any of this in a soundbite? You know, I mean, some people do, but that's not it. And we're just here for our own healing, and we're here in the cauldron of relationship, which is, again, as you just alluded to, it's where we're going to see our projections and where we're going to be given the opportunity to face ourselves and to face what we believe and sometimes what other people believe about us that's, you know, maybe not all that clear on their end. And so it's like, you know, we're sort of shadow boxing all the time, in a way, you might say, unless we know what our purpose is, right? So that's like the end game is like, okay, we'll get to that, right? Because then we can be in proper alignment and we can come out of projection mode and into offering our gifts and offering what the Spirit would through us. But as I was listening to you, I was seeing one of the movies that we didn't talk about at all that just showed up, which is The Matrix.
Oh, of course.
You know, and Mr. Anderson and the Smiths.
They're so good.
You know, it's like, there it is. And, you know, I forget which one it was, whether it was one of the early ones or the one that just came out, but basically being told, like, pretty much any of them can morph into one of the Smiths, right? And so are we seeing from our projections and from the distortion and the darkness, or are we seeing from truth about who's sitting in front of us and what's really going on? And it is a sticky wicket of weirdness, constant. And but if we don't stop at some point or be stopped by the Spirit or by our own suffering that inspires us to go, wow, what is going on here? This is a mess. We're just going to keep playing out these old, tired storylines over and over again. And it's hell. It's absolute hell, in my experience. Even the seeming lovely stories, even the seeming, rainbows and pussycats, even that at a certain point becomes intolerable for the mind, because it is undefined in truth. It is limitless in truth. And so at a certain point, even those things will have to go. But we're kind of jumping ahead.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking again of what I talked about, I think one time before, when I was just kind of really wanting to get more deeply in touch with the teachings of A Course in Miracles. And, I wanted to experience the love and the joy. And I'm on my way to work in my car. And I'm just getting so angry with everybody on the road and what they're doing. And, my focus is totally outside. And, at the same time, inside, I'm a complete mess. And I think at the time it was like, I just wasn't fully in my purpose. So of course I'm going to throw out that everybody else is messing up. They can't drive. What are they doing? Like, what is everybody doing, right? This is what happens when you don't take care of your own or take responsibility for your own mind. And I mean, who hasn't experienced something like that, right? And it's so, you always use the word grace, there's such a grace with how things are presented. Because in the moment, we're always getting exactly what we need, even if it doesn't feel awesome at all in the moment, because we really don't like to come up against, these points where it's like, I effing hate this person right now. And I have to also look at, well, it's not really about this person, which sucks, right? Because you can't just throw it out there anymore and leave it there and go on with your life. You have to pull it back at some point and face that thought of hatred in your own mind, a hatred against yourself in a way. So thank God for that grace, how it gets presented. And yeah, I mean, we've had this whole container of doing these recordings, and it's been such a great place, specifically for me. I'm sure for you too, but we've had very obvious moments where I was just needing to release something, face something and release it. And when we were talking about this topic, that's, the one example that came to mind is one day we were doing a recording, and afterwards, because, I'm just in this prayer of wanting to be truly helpful and releasing whatever isn't helpful. After our recording, we were finished with the recording, I just said, like, I still feel like I've got more to say, and like I don't know exactly where to say it, and it's like I don't get the space, basically saying Elizabeth is talking too much in a way, and I don't have the space. I don't have what I need, right? And where I am in my life now, those kind of thoughts I know are something that isn't true. So I just shared it, and I think we just moved on with our day. And at one point I took the dog we were watching out for a walk, and as soon as I came to the edge of the forest, I heard, "I feel so inadequate." And it was like so loud in my mind. And that thought or belief I know has shown up over and over and over and over and over and over. And I never know what to do with it. Until that point, I didn't know what to do with it. So when it came up again, I actually didn't want to share about it at first because I just did not like it. And
there it was.
And then we were in the car, and I just ended up saying it. It just came out, and lots of emotion came along with it. I feel so inadequate. And that grace was just right there, because along with it ended up, I just kind of sat with it, and right away pretty much came a memory from when I was like 3, 4, 5, where I first, in this lifetime at least, came across that inadequate, oh my God, like there's something very wrong with me feeling over nothing, basically. What happened in that memory wasn't, if I look at it now, wasn't a big deal. But to me, the little one back then was the worst thing ever. It's like I couldn't have done anything worse. And, in talking together, it just became clear that I was still stuck in that place. And, last time I talked about this episode of Star Trek where Commander Sisko keeps bringing himself back to this memory over and over and over, because he's still living in it. There's something unresolved there. And for me, in that memory, there was something unresolved. And so the projection wants to say it's somebody else's fault that I can't be happy right now. I can't be joyful and, do what feels inspiring, which kind of is what I was experiencing when we did that one recording. Like, where's my space to speak? I can't, it was like this victim place. And, seeing that, like, it's been this loop over and over and over, and how it actually would keep me from fully seeing what's in front of me, or the person, that's in front of me. Just working through that was so transformative. Like, finally, like something became clear. Like, I could never really put the two together. Like, and not that it's even in that memory, but there was something very potent that just seemed to get associated in that moment for me. So yeah, and since then, working through it, looking at it, kind of almost like replaying the memory in a different way, and like talking to that part of myself that got stuck in, like, oh my God, there's something wrong. I did something really bad. Talking to that part of my mind, easing, and retranslating that situation has really, like, changed everything.
We get these incredible kinks in our mind, and they get stuck when there's like a collision of emotion and a seeming choice in the mind to go into guilt and shame and regret. Like that little part that she's referring to, there was a moment of, oh my God, I've done something wrong, which is like the ultimate that we're all dealing with.
Right.
This belief that we separated from the divine. Oh my God, I've done something so wrong. I better bury it under bazillions of layers. and
make a whole universe with planets
to hide
and stars
out.
and wars and
and instead of just facing the devastation of what we've done to ourselves in those moments of unconsciousness, we run around, as you said, projecting it out onto everyone else. And, that kind of energetic of like, I don't feel like I'm in my power, meaning in my divine alignment, not power over, or not like, I got to shine brighter than Elizabeth or the rest of the people in the world. No, I just want to show up with what's right in my heart for me, with spirit. Like, I just want to do what spirit wants me to do. And when we have these old ideas about ourselves, we can't engage. Spirit can't use us optimally, right? You had this little part in your mind that was like, nope, don't step out and be your fullness, because you'll embarrass yourself. You'll make a huge mistake. You might be with other people that don't know what they're doing. Don't do it. Just stay behind the line. And that's hell. And I've been there.
Because I didn't want to experience that again.
Totally.
But
exactly.
The stupid thing is, I was experiencing it all the time. In like a seemingly mild version, right?
Right. Yeah, it's so much easier. What they don't tell you is that it's so much easier to go in and face it. Feel the emotions. I mean, there she was in the car as I'm driving, crying and releasing it. I'm going, this is great. Yay, This is fantastic. Let it up and out, rather than people saying, oh, you shouldn't cry. Don't be upset. No, this is great. And then when she got home, she took, Spirit's guidance, which was go sit with yourself with Spirit and just see what's in there. Go in and talk to this part of your mind. It's really quite simple. Once we make the choice, I don't want to live this way anymore. Like there was that deep acknowledgement at the next level. I don't want to be in my smallness. And, I have plenty of areas where I'm not in my total alignment, but I've done years and years of this kind of healing work. And so I want nothing more than to see Yuta and everybody else in their power and their potency and their joy and their radiance, And so she had total space with me to step in, and I have space with her to offer what I can offer. And there are times where she offers something to me that's such an amazing reflection. It's like, thank you so much. We get to share our gifts and our love and our joy and our, this worked for me. Try this out. I mean, the movies and the conversation, everything becomes a blessing, to everyone and everything. And that's, the gift of making these recordings is we're just sharing our love. We're just sharing our own messy journeys and our own, we don't really know, but we're doing our best, rather than projecting our crap onto each other like, you can't do it, or I don't, which for me was a long part of my journey of feeling other people's projections so deeply. And I bought their lies. And, that's another piece of it. It's like, we are projecting our experience, but we're also dealing with other people's projections. And other people's projections can really be wet blankets energetically on us and can really, I had some image of somebody from my childhood in my mind this morning. And one of the parents was so aggressive all the time. And it's a miracle that the person's still standing, So we have an incredible responsibility to heal our own minds, obviously, but it's also good to remember, like, what are you projecting onto other people? Are you seeing them in their truth, or are you seeing them from your projection? Are you seeing the Christ and the light and the divinity that we all are, or are you seeing the sick and suffering, poor you person, whatever it is? And it's tough. It's really tough because these images that show up in front of us seem so real. And back to the Matrix, like sometimes you see the Smiths, they look like a woman in, a everyday outfit running down the street, and then they morph into one of the Smiths, they like shapeshift right there into this killing machine, So it's like the split in our mind can present on us, on the turn of a dime. I see you clearly, and then you touch a little boo-boo of mine, and the next thing you know, I'm Medusa. Right?
Oh, yeah, you were talking about turning into a pillar of salt.
We were last week, right?
Yeah.
So, it's tricky business. And again, our relationships are going to show us. So, like, what are the repeating themes showing up in your life? For me, there was a lot of like, people have told me I'm so many different things. I've believed what people told me. I had people tell me I was a cold-hearted bitch quite often as a child. And I remember the day where I was in spiritual community and somebody who had no agenda called to me, "Hey, sweetness." And it caught my attention so dramatically. It was like it stopped me in my tracks because it had the vibration of truth to it. It was free of an agenda. And it literally stopped me in my tracks. I almost started to cry right there because I had been carrying this story of the cold-hearted bitch that had been projected onto me as real and true on some level in my mind. And it was screwing me up so dynamically. I mean, so dynamically. And, had people then who didn't really want to compete with me, didn't feel that they had a reason to try to put me under their thumb. And they were like, "Hey, you're great. Want to hang out? Hey, we appreciate you. Thanks for being a part of our journey." And it was like, are you kidding me? Really? I mean, seriously, it was like a news flash, right? So good to remember the power of, how we use our own minds in terms of what we're projecting out there into the world and onto other people, It's like we're kind of the blank screen, of the world. It's a blank screen, actually. It's not the windows in my room here and the snowball and the computer. It's actually a blank screen. And what are we putting out there on the blank screen? Oof.
Yeah, like, and where are we getting hung up? Because in a way, like, this world's kind of cool, right? Because it will just really like show you exactly where you are still hung up. Like, where do you still have attachments to whatever beliefs that are running in your mind? Like, I always think of I feel like some people, when they get on the spiritual path, they get there's a temptation to get sort of pulled into activism in the world. Like, there's peace of mind possible, but why don't we try for peace in the world too? And that, on the surface, that sounds really great, right? What a good, like, place to put your energy. Peace in the world. But that's projection, actually.
Can't happen.
You're just projecting something into the world that isn't where your focus really is is used best. Or, trying to save all the animals and promoting. Yeah, I mean, I love animals, but like, but at the same time, I've learned where my true place of change is. Where can I actually make change? And that's within my own thinking, my own experience, So I always, for myself, and whenever I join with people, I always promote to watch the feelings. Like, what are you feeling when you're, like, we've been watching movies and, recently specifically the Ozark, and it's like, what am I feeling? These are some crazy, scenarios that I don't have in my own life, but I get to see them on the screen and go through them that way and release any kind of ideas, beliefs, thoughts, whatever, judgments that I have in my own mind. And it's been very fun because we're just throwing them out there as it's happening, like, this is crazy. Oh my God, don't do it, So I think it's just really good to remember, like, the world will show you your beliefs as you're watching the news. If anything is getting triggered in your mind as you're watching the news and what's happening in the world, which there seems to be a lot happening right now, or, what's happening with the weather. It seems to be very cold in places that shouldn't be cold, or hotter in places that shouldn't be so hot, or, volcanic eruptions that are kind of out of this world in a way. Like, where are you getting triggered by any of the stuff. And if you are, then there's something in there. Like, we oftentimes pull some oracle cards just to see what the energies are. And I pulled the richness. Marine life actually goes along with it, but the sort of energetic of it is richness. And, when we move through our days with that focus that we're going to be shown everything that's unexamined in our mind through everything that's happening every day, there's so much richness to be had, and like so much reward that we get by looking at, where do we still have something out in the world? Where do we still have something that's actually in our mind put out onto the screen of the world that maybe is ready to come back?
Yeah.
So we can have that true inner peace, that reward that we all want somewhere in our minds.
Yeah, and I was just being brought back to what I was seeing when you were first talking about the early days of like going to your job and having the road rage or the like, I hate everybody kind of stuff. And I was being shown when I, was first really getting a deep butt kicking, this guy that I was going to move to Manhattan because of, really. I got relocated and got an apartment that the two of us were going to be in, and he left before, he just decided to do something else with his life. It was the greatest gift ever. Thank you, Christian. Thank you. And but I remember I stopped smoking not long after that. I had been a smoker for a time, and that Band-Aid came off of the cigarettes, and I had nowhere to go with my emotions and my stinking thinking, and was really miserable. And one morning I woke up and I just had this sense to take my notepad in my pocket, felt really strong guidance, and I was going to write every negative thought. I was going on a negativity diet, even though it wasn't at all a diet. It was actually put it all down in the notebook. And I lived up on the Upper East Side, and it was a long walk to the subway from my place. And I'm in my suit and my pantyhose and my high heels and my briefcase and the whole bit, and it's hot and humid outside. My least favorite kind of weather event. And I wasn't even actually to the elevator from my apartment, which was pretty much right out the door of my apartment, and I already had like 10 lines written down in my notebook. And by the time I got to the subway, I literally had so many pages, and it took me so long to get to the subway because I was stopping every couple seconds to write down another thought. And it was like, I hate the weather. I am so sweaty and disgusting. I can't stand that guy's shoes. This life sucks. I mean, I just literally was on a rant in my notebook. And I had pages. By the time I got to my job, a couple subway trips, to get to my job, it was already full, my notebook, of every negative thought that was showing up. I literally wrote them all down. And I had a huge notebook by the time I was done. I don't remember. I think I did it for like a week or something. We don't stop the projection machine until we see all the crap. And in fact, most of those thoughts that I was having weren't even mine. I was picking up other people's thoughts. I was, receiving out of the ethers the quantum soup of crappy thoughts
of the mind
that are the mind and the one mind, and that aren't personal. But we don't know that they're not personal to us until we question them, until we stop the constant chatter and the constant teleticker of insane thinking, until we start to say, hey, this sucks, I'd like another way, and we start to really investigate it. We don't know, are they your projections or my projections? They kind of seem the same for a long time, right? And so, as you said, the only option is take it as if it's all mine until otherwise revealed to you. And as you start shoveling the SHIT out of your mind, it gets clearer and clearer where this stuff is coming from. And it gets clearer and clearer that none of the thoughts you're thinking are real and true unless they have to do with love and grace and being helpful and showing up in the world in a way that we would think of as being divine. And of course, it's beyond that, God's thoughts. We can't even know. We can't put them into words, but we start to have our thinking elevated out of the garbage bin. That's how it happens. These movies that we've been talking about, like you have to stop at some point and take a look. What is the story that's playing out to have a chance of something else to come in, right? I mean, the garbage trucks of crap that I have offloaded out of my mind and out of my emotions is vast. And it's not done. I'll continue because it's the one mind. And I still seem to be in a world that has a lot of distortion that seems real. Seems like there are a lot of people suffering still, right? So, if I'm believing that stuff, I got to take it where I can do something, as you said, where there's actual power possible. It's in my mind. I've had to unfriend a lot of people. That's like every day when I went on Facebook. For a time I was on Facebook. I was late to Facebook. I was a late bloomer. And I wasn't on there a lot. But I had to get rid of the people who every day were like posting every weather event. It was like they were in a constant, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I had to unfriend them because there was no clarity about where the weather events were coming from. Where's the weather event happen?
In your mind.
In your mind.
Where's that volcano erupting? In your mind. Sucks, right? Who wants to... Yeah. On what level, are you really wanting to
be responsible
to look
for your
at
mind?
This? Yeah. I always love the story of David Hoffmeister, the Course in Miracles teacher, going to China. And, it's like the sky is completely filled with smog.
Black
it's
smog,
gray.
Sure.
It's ugly and gross. But because of his state of mind, he's sitting there, with his big cheeks smiling like, so beautiful. The sky is so great. Beautiful. And, all the Chinese at the event that came to the event there are just like, what are you talking about? Look at it. It's bad. Like, that's all pollution. And I don't see it, like there's a state of mind where you've really taken back all of the projections where you look at the world as a reflection of your pristine mind.
I was just having the Being There movie pop in. Chauncey Gardner. He, one of the best movies ever. I got to see it in the movie theater with my mom, and maybe we'll watch it again. I've seen it in recent years a few times, but yeah, his mind is so innocent. It's so innocent.
What do you like to do? I like to watch.
I like to watch.
Yeah, that's what we could be doing.
So
like we can watch. Like, there's so many spiritual teachings that talk about being the observer.
Yeah.
Just being the observer.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're walking through life behind yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're there, your body seems to be doing stuff, but your awareness is like behind your head. In a way. Like that's how I sometimes experience it. Where you're just actually watching. I like to watch. You just watch what's happening, and oh, that's interesting. Oh, there's a little hook there, or what is that weird, confusing situation over there? You just get to watch, reel that projection back wherever it's still hooked outside, as if there's something the world is meant to give you, which it isn't. Except the opportunities to really see why you've actually made this whole dream in the first place.
It's so much nicer to live without the projections. And yeah, like you said, we could go on for hours and hours and hours, but we don't become free of the projections without often facing really dark thoughts and beliefs and some heavy emotions. I've spent a lot of time releasing through tears, a lot of time, and it's just been the way. And maybe you won't have to go through as much of the purification on that level because maybe some of us have done it already enough that you won't have to take so much time to do it. I was making the video for this potentially before we even recorded it. It was just showing up to make the video, and I was calling it spelunking. And that's really what it is. It's a cave dive. You know, we have to dive into the cave with spirit to see the shadows that are there in our minds that are either going to just leave us feeling paralyzed and terrified, or leave us projecting them out into the world, playing it out in really weird ways. And both of those options have become pretty intolerable for me. And so, like you said, it's more about being in the offering up something that I feel guided to do, extending the love rather than projecting the crap in my mind. And that is part of the answer, or the answer is like, get into alignment as you clear this gunk out with the spirit. It's getting into alignment to say, what do you want me to do? Because if I'm not doing your will, spirit, I'm probably going to be stuck in the projection screen with like the stuck film reel looping. It's stuck and it's skipping, or the record that's stuck on repeat in a groove with a scratch. You know, that's the samsaras and samskaras. You know, that's the groove in the mind that keeps replaying. So we've got to go in, you know, deep cavern diving in our minds to have spirit show us these things. They've been shadow figures and seemingly real, but they're not. And as we look at them with the spirit, they become no longer the boogeymen that we're running from. And we start to have more and more peace of mind. But as we've said many times, you don't sweep it under the rug. And you also don't sit and stay fixated on them. You move into action, into service, into being, what would you have me do? Because I really, when I'm left to my own devices, I get myself into some not great storylines.
Yeah. Yeah, right now, you know, sometimes the best thing for me to do is, you know, if I wake up and it's like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? You know, that kind of loop. What am I supposed to be? What do you want me to do? What's my purpose? Like, inform, you know, when I get into a bit of a sort of a freak out mode about it, the best thing sometimes is actually flip the switch into, how can I help today? What are we doing in the house today? Can I do anything? Is there a plan? You know, and it just shifts the mind into that channel of, you know, getting out of your own head. And I love spiritual community for that, because I'm sure you've experienced it in the one that you were in. I've experienced it in the one that I was in. There isn't a huge focus on you know, sitting down and talking about how bad you're feeling and blah 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 blah. There's like, okay, welcome, we're going to give you these projects to work on. You're going to be focused in projects and service mode all day long. And yes, we'll have, you know, sessions set aside where things can be released. Or, you know, when something naturally comes up in the moment, there's all the space for that. But other than that, we're going to put you into service because your mind is not used to being in service. It wants to get stuck in that yucky crap for some reason. There's, like, you know, we've talked about the attraction to guilt. Like, so, yeah, I think as we see how bad our thoughts are making us feel, there's going to come this point where we need and want something totally to change. And the only way that really happens is by giving the reins over to an energy that has the full picture. Or sometimes it's just somebody that's gone the path a little bit longer than maybe you have, that has a bit more insight around these things, has experienced a lot more of the darkness themselves and how they've moved through it, you know. And so, you know, ultimately things can really get fun. And spelunking actually is supposed to be a fun thing. You don't go in there thinking like, oh, what I don't know, bones am I going to find? Or what, you know, what crimes am I going to discover in this cave? It's like, oh no, there's so much like to explore and wow, like uncharted territory. It's
Yeah.
like this adventure kind of feeling that we can get into with our own minds. Because if we go in it thinking like, oh man, I'm just going to find all this bad stuff that I don't want to look at. I'm so scared to look at all of these things. And, you're going to stop yourself before you even begin. Yeah. So, there has to be the end goal has to kind of be in mind as you're going forward on this journey, that you really just want to have the light. You want to know the truth, the ultimate truth. And so the way you move through the darkness will be really guided by that goal, by that, desire to really see what's really going on. So, yeah, be gentle with yourself on this journey and ask for help. Ask for help when you need it, and really pay attention to what comes your way in terms of helpful thoughts. It may just be like, oh, remember seeing that person on Facebook post this nice post that really seemed to light my mind up that day? Maybe I reach out to them because I'm feeling really terrible today, and maybe they can talk to me. I don't know them, but it's just a thought. The Spirit will give you these thoughts, simple thoughts that can be so easily dismissed. But
yeah, there's a deep self-hatred that seems to be largely responsible for the projections that get dumped out of us. And if you can just kind of know that and sort of try to move beyond that, find the people that are, feeling loving, even if you hate yourself, or even if you don't admit that you hate yourself, but you don't feel so great, it's maybe some self-hatred. Find the people that seem to be moving forward with some lightness in their heart and with their heads screwed on. Like, what's the head screwed on? You're happy. If your head's screwed on straight, you're happy. It's not like, oh, I can do the world. No, you're happy. You're like Chauncey.
Yeah.
You're watching.
Mm-hmm.
Find them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're so grateful to be inspired to make these, and we don't get much feedback at all. So hopefully there's something that you're finding useful.
Yeah.
And we'd love to hear from you anytime about it, no matter how it's rubbing you. So
Yeah. Thank you for coming along on the journey, and
maybe you'll see us next time. Maybe you won't. Who knows? It could all be over today.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye.